Video games are unlike any other medium. A book can take you to another world, a film can make you feel what a character feels, but a game can make you become someone else entirely. Games offer something no other art form can, a combination of challenge, discovery, social connection, and pure interactivity. They give people a sense of accomplishment as they overcome obstacles, they build immersive realities, and they let you experience things you never could in real life. And within the vast world of gaming, few genres capture that spirit more purely than the Metroidvania. Once thought to be a relic of the past, overshadowed by the rise of 3D worlds, the Metroidvania genre disappeared from the spotlight, seemingly gone forever. But it came back, stronger, and it did not look back. A forgotten formula, a new generation. The Metroidvania is alive again, and it's more powerful than it has ever been. But why did such an incredible genre, built on exploration and mystery, suddenly fade from the scene? And how did it become the defining formula of the entire indie revolution? To answer that, we have to go back to the very beginning. It all started here. August 6, 1986, Nintendo releases Metroid for the Famicom in Japan. The game was the vision of Gunpei Yokoi, the head of Nintendo's R&D1 division, the same man who gave the world the Game Boy. Yoshio Sakamoto worked alongside him as the designer and character creator. Their intention was bold, very bold, to experiment beyond the success of Super Mario Bros. And The Legend of Zelda, to go somewhere darker, stranger, more alien. Inspired by Ridley Scott's 1979 film Alien, Yokoi's team sought to create a mysterious, isolated environment filled with eerie creatures and a strong female lead. These ideas shaped Samus Aran and the alien world of Zebes. In an interview with Yoshio Sakamoto, during his time as a designer and his boss was Gunpei Yokoi, who always said, designers don't need to know about tech. If they do, they'll start claiming something is impossible before they try, and that's no good. They envisioned Metroid as an experiment in atmospheric, interconnected design where the hardware's limits would spark the player's curiosity rather than kill it. Yokoi had a design philosophy that ran through everything he made. He called it lateral thinking with withered technology. The idea that creativity comes not from chasing cutting-edge hardware, but from finding radical new uses for technology that already exists and is well understood. He believed that toys and games do not necessarily require cutting-edge technology. Novel and fun gameplay are more important. You play as Samus Aran, alone, on a mysterious, unexplored alien planet. That is the essence of Metroid. No hand-holding, no spoon-feeding, no waypoints, just you, the darkness, and a world that slowly reveals itself. Sakamoto described the original Metroid as an attempt to create a game set in a gloopy, alien-like world, and they delivered exactly that. The entire gameplay was built around non-linear exploration and backtracking, encouraging players to witness the world themselves. Metroid followed the golden rule of storytelling: show, don't tell. But Metroid was only half the story. other half came from a gothic castle, a vampire lord, and a series that had nearly run out of ideas. Before 1997, Castlevania was exactly what it looked like. A linear action platformer, stage by stage, one way forward, you whipped, you jumped, and you moved right. It was beloved, but it had none of Metroid's exploratory DNA. After 2 years without having a new entry, fans expected another Castlevania, more whipping, more hardcore platforming, but what they got was something no one expected. Castlevania Symphony of the Night. The game director Koji Igarashi laid out exactly what they set out to overturn. With Symphony of the Night, our concept was to make a game that would overturn players' ideas about Castlevania, yet also feel like a Castlevania game. As for things they wanted to change, they wanted to make the action exploration based, add RPG elements, no more one-hit kills, the player character would not use a whip, and no more stairs. Fans were shocked. Some called it an RPG wannabe, fearing it was distancing itself from what Castlevania truly was. Despite initial controversy and slow sales, Symphony of the Night became a critical darling and long-term commercial success, carried entirely by word of mouth. It reshaped the entire franchise and, though no one knew it yet, helped birth a genre. With both titles in the world, the formula was complete. Metroid's interconnected exploration, Castlevania's RPG depth, the formula felt unstoppable. Games followed: Metroid Fusion, Zero Mission, Aria of Sorrow, Portrait of Ruin, Order of Ecclesia. But what do you call this new genre? Funny enough, neither Nintendo nor Konami ever gave this style a name. That fell to the hands of the fans. Around 2001, a man named Richard Hutnick was writing about Castlevania's Circle of the Moon on a Usenet forum. Trying to describe what the game felt like, he made a throwaway joke calling it Metroidvania. He later said he couldn't even remember making it. The word spread through forums, gaming magazines, and fan sites. By the mid-2000s, it had appeared in print. By the 2010s, it was official industry vocabulary, a Steam tag, a genre shelf, a cultural shorthand. A genre so new that fans had to invent the vocabulary to describe it. That's how you know something is real. When two good things come together, they can make something better. In the early 2000s, the industry discovered a new religion: 3 dimensions. 3D worlds, cinematic storytelling, lifelike graphics, they became the new standard. What was once the pinnacle of game design, the tight, deliberate 2D spaces of the Metroidvania, suddenly felt like a relic of a decaying era. God of War, Devil May Cry 3, Resident Evil 4, Halo 2. These games push cinematic scale and fluid 3D combat to new heights. The spotlight shifted. The side-scrolling genre that was once defined exploration was left in the shadows, quietly fading as gaming entered its blockbuster era. Metroid would not see a new 2D entry for nearly 2 decades, and then, as if the fading fire needed more water thrown into it, both franchises boarded the 3D train and produced some of the most controversial entries in their histories.
Men of faith claim that this is a test from God to strengthen our spirit. Perhaps this is true, or perhaps it is simply a pious lie. If it is true, darkness has come to engulf once proud humanity, and we are witnessing the end of mankind.
Konami handed the keys to Mercury's team and producer Hideo Kojima, who reimagined Castlevania as a cinematic 3D action franchise clearly inspired by God of War. The game sold. It wasn't exactly bad, but longtime fans described the feeling like looking at a photograph of someone you once knew intimately. The shape is right, but something essential is gone. The exploratory structure that defined the Vania side of Metroidvania had been abandoned entirely. Some fan reviews have said, it's not a bad game, just doesn't classify as a Metroidvania because it is, to my knowledge, entirely linear. Some said, it's slow, has no freedom pretty much, and it felt like none of the good Metroidy Castlevanias. Meanwhile, Yoshio Sakamoto, one of Metroid's original creators, partnered with Team Ninja to make the series' most criticized entry.
Why am I still alive? A baby.
Metroid Other M aimed to merge fast-paced action with deep cinematic storytelling, but what emerged felt stifling and contradictory to everything Metroid had ever stood for. Samus, once a silent icon of isolation and strength, was given a voice that many felt undermined her entirely. The freedom of exploration was replaced with linear corridors. For the first time, fans genuinely wondered, is this genre over? While the major studios were chasing spectacle, something was happening in the margins. One person alone, building what he loved. Daisuke Amaya, known online as Pixel, was a salaryman working at a printing systems company. In his free time, over 5 years, he built a game. No studio, no publisher, no budget, just himself. He was asked years later what his biggest influences were. His answer was immediate. There's actually so many that I can't even name, but throughout interviews I would usually just say Metroid. But he didn't just copy Metroid. He wanted to add something it lacked. The character wasn't cute enough. Games have various kinds of fun, and for me, cute is one thing I cannot separate from fun. The word cute is the result of many techniques other than those of appearance. The movement, the background music, the sound effects, these all express cuteness. Cave stories spread entirely through word of mouth and internet communities. Critics described it as so massive that it rivals modern Game Boy Advance, Castlevania, and Metroid games in terms of scope and playtime. One person, 5 years, no studio, a game that rivaled major studios. The 2D platformer was not dead. It was just waiting for someone to believe in it again. In 2008, Microsoft's Summer of Arcade promotion brought indie games to a mainstream gaming audience for the first time at scale. Braid, made by two people, received mainstream media coverage no one expected. The indie game was now a legitimate force. The following year, Chair Entertainment released Shadow Complex, a Metroidvania built on one foundational belief that Super Metroid was the pinnacle of 2D game design. It became one of the best-selling downloadable titles on the entire Xbox 360 platform. The message was clear. The audience existed. The genre just needed one more game large enough to set everything alight. In 2015, Moon Studios released Ori and the Blind Forest and proved that the Metroidvania formula could also be achingly, devastatingly beautiful. With hand-painted visuals and a score that felt like grief made audible, Ori pulled the genre into a general audience's line of sight for the first time. Then 3 people in Australia, working under the name Team Cherry, released Hollow Knight. The concept had emerged from a game jam neither of them finished on time. William Pellen recalled how it happened. We missed the deadline for the jam, but we just kept talking about what sort of game we could make that would fit. We thought of the little insect knight exploring a deep old kingdom beneath the surface of the world, and everything kinda snowballed from there. They launched a Kickstarter asking for 35,000 Australian dollars, just enough to build something small. They raised over 57,000 Australian dollars. That extra money allowed 2 years of full-time development funded largely from personal savings and Ari Gibson's previous animation business. Ari Gibson described what it meant to see the game on Nintendo hardware at E3. The game is built upon our love of classic Nintendo games, so this is the peak of a 30-year cycle. Growing up playing them, gaining enough skills to create our own homage to those games, and releasing it on the same platform that inspired us in the first place. The PC release passed 1 million copies sold the day before the Nintendo Switch launch. In just its first 2 weeks on Switch, it sold more than 250 additional copies. Team Cherry had never wanted to be defined by a genre label, but the result was undeniable. Sorting Steam's Metroidvania tag by rating, Hollow Knight sits at the very top. It did not just join the genre, it redefined its ceiling. Hollow Knight's success sent a message to the entire gaming industry, including Nintendo. In 2021, after 19 years without a mainline 2D Metroid, Nintendo released Metroid Dread. It was nominated for Game of the Year. It became the best-selling entry in the entire Metroid franchise history. The founders of the genre had been watching what the indie scene built in their absence, and now they were back, better for it. So what makes a Metroidvania tick? What is the actual language underneath these games? Igarashi, who spent decades refining the formula, described it in terms of what it gives the player. I think the exploration element makes you feel like you're moving the story along yourself a lot better than with titles divided into stages. Having character growth elements allows gamers to enjoy the story right up to the end. Excitement and convincingness of gameplay, I think it comes down to that. First, the interconnected world, one continuous map, rooms woven together, every area connecting to another, no isolated levels, one living space. Second, ability-gated progression. You find a new power, a double jump, a dash, a specific weapon, and doors that were always there finally open. The world doesn't change you, you do. Third, constructive backtracking. Returning to old areas is the point. You are not lost. You are remembering. Every dead end from an hour ago is a promise waiting to be kept. Fourth, persistent growth. Your character changes, upgrades stick. You are genuinely stronger than when you started. The world feels different because you are different. You are much stronger than before. Fifth is wayfinding. Save points, fast travel, maps that surface where you've been. These aren't conveniences. They are the scaffolding that makes free exploration feel safe enough to be truly free. But the genre doesn't stand still. A new evolution has emerged, sometimes called Metroidvania. Games like Animal Well replace traditional ability gates with something more invisible: knowledge. The world is open from the start. The barriers are cognitive. It is not your body that grows, it is your mind. The Metroidvania is still asking the same question it always has. Do you understand this world well enough to unlock its secrets? It has simply changed what the word understanding means. The Metroidvania is more than a genre. It has become a cultural touchstone. The speedrunning community built entire ecosystems around Super Metroid and Symphony of the Night. Two games from the 1990s that remain actively studied, broken, and optimized decades later. Hollow Knight players don't just complete the game, they inhabit Hollownest. Lore theories fill wikis, fan art fills the internet. The wait for Hollow Knight Silksong became one of gaming's most beloved running jokes, and then, on September 4, 2025, the joke ended. Silksong released. On launch day, it rose to the top of Steam's charts with more than 500,000 players simultaneously. Critics praised it as one of the finest action games of the decade. Team Cherry's William Pellen was asked about the goal behind Silksong. He described it the same way he would describe the genre itself. I'm not thinking about it in those terms. The goal is that we have this idea for a game, and we get to make the best version that we can of that game, one that satisfies the theme. The Metroidvania also represents something deeper about why people play games at all. It is a genre built on agency, on the feeling that the world responds to you, that your growth matters, that your curiosity is rewarded, that the map opens because you earned it. In an era of passive entertainment, the Metroidvania demands active engagement. It says, this world will not explain itself to you. Explore, remember, return, understand. That is not nostalgia. That is philosophy. Every Metroidvania tells the same story at its core. You begin weak and lost, the world is larger than you, doors are closed, Paths are blocked, the map is dark. But you explore, you learn, you grow, and slowly, one ability, one discovery, one moment of, I remember this room, the world opens up and you realize that it was always open. You just needed to become someone who could see it. The Metroidvania disappeared because the industry moved on without it. It came back because the loop of exploration, growth, and revelation is something human beings fundamentally need. It came back through one developer building a game in his spare time inspired by Metroid and wanting to make something cute enough, through 3 people missing a game jam deadline and refusing to let the idea go, through a genre so new that fans had to invent vocabulary to describe it. The Metroidvania was never truly gone. It was just waiting in the shadows of an unexplored room for someone to find the right ability to open the door. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double. Oh, wait, that wasn't part of this. I see.